What's going on, everyone? Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the reach truck operator. I'm going to go over 3 safety tips, and then I'm going to go over 3 tips of my own on operating the equipment. So my first thing I want to say is that owning up to your mistakes. When you make a mistake, whether it's selecting or on the reach truck, if you make a mistake, you need to own up to it, especially when that mistake can cause a bigger issue down the road. What am I talking about? The first thing I want to talk about is when you hit a rack. I've seen people hit a rack so hard that they actually dislodged the rack from mounted to the floor. Obviously something you don't want to see, something that could obviously cause a rack to collapse. So when you hit a rack and you cause damage to that rack, you need to let supervision know so they can get maintenance over there to fix it. You do not want to let something like that slide. So that's the first safety tip for today. When you hit a rack, report it. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is whenever you're putting product into the rack up above in the reserve racks. Sometimes when you put it in, the pallet maybe falls or something, and I've seen people do this, or you put it in and product falls off your pallet, and now it's just hanging in the rack. I've witnessed this quite a few times when people do this, and usually it's newer operators, and they leave it go. They don't say nothing. They leave the cases hanging up in the rack, and they leave the pallet falling down on one side for the next person to pull it out and actually drop the stuff all over the place. So once again, reporting something to your supervisor. Hey, I put a pallet up there and a couple cases fell off, and then they can come and take care of the situation. Better than having a case fall and hit somebody in the head. I always think of the worst when I'm in the warehouse, and I cannot stand when I'm looking up in the rack and I see cases just hanging in the rack, especially when it's a heavy case. It could be just 2 levels up, and if a heavy case falls off and hits someone in the head, it could kill them. I just think that people always think that, nah, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. I'm not worried about that case. Chances of it falling and hitting someone in the head is slim to none, but it can happen. So I always report everything I see. So that's my second safety tip. The third and final safety tip I want to say is fixing somebody else's stuff. I just did this the other day when I was on the reach truck. I'm coming down an aisle, and I just happened to look up about 3 levels up, and I noticed that there's a pallet sticking out pretty far. No need for that pallet to be sticking out far. And I adjusted that pallet. I took the 20 seconds to adjust that pallet and push it back in the rack. And then the last week I was on it, and I noticed that there was a product on a slip sheet, and the product was hanging off the pallet like this much. Now, it was wrapped really well, but that product can still fall. So I just took my time to raise my forks up and push the product back on the pallet again. Little things like that, just being mindful of safety things and, doing things, going out of your way just to make sure that nothing is going to hurt anybody else. So that's my 3 safety tips for today. Just be very mindful of when you're putting stuff in there, it can fall. And if it does fall and hit somebody that's not paying attention, then it could cause serious harm. So let's get to my 3 tips for today for operating the equipment. All right, guys. So the first thing I want to talk about, my first tip for today is whenever you just did a replen, now I have an empty pallet. And then I got to go and grab a pallet out of reserve, and I'm exiting the aisle. So I need to discard that empty pallet. So I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can do that. So the first way is right here. You see me, this is the most common way, stacking the pallet on top and then picking up both pallets and then dropping your pallet off at the end of the aisle for the other pallet to come. This is the way I like doing it when I'm at the end of the aisle. Is just hit it with my outriggers, put it in between the outriggers, and then I could just drop it off that way and continue on to the next aisle. So that is 2 options that you have of doing that whenever you have an empty pallet. Like I said, the first way I see a lot of people do, I just don't think people think of the second way. The second way is a very easy way of discarding that pallet. But once again, guys, traveling forks first, you got to remember, do not be passing anybody in the aisle, and you don't want to go through an intersection. So if I'm coming to, like right there at the end of the aisle, if I'm coming to a place where I could just slide out and just drop that pallet off where it needs to be, then I'm okay with that. But I would never do that traveling past somebody. I would do it the first way. I would put it on top, pick up the pallets, and then I would spin around and go forks trailing me. That's how I do it when I pass somebody in the aisle. But at the end of the aisle right there, just stick that pallet between the outriggers and put it on and keep going. All right, guys, so my second tip for today is something whenever you're on a replen, This is something people do not think about. I actually showed somebody this in the warehouse a little while ago, and they're like, I never thought of doing that. And honestly, I never thought of doing it until someone showed me about 15 years ago. And I've been using this ever since. Now, in our warehouse, we don't have many opportunities to do this. Probably about 5% of my moves, replanning per day, I do this. And that is dragging a slip sheet with product on it. Now, you could do this with light product, dragging the slip sheet off the pallet onto the product. I'm going to show you a real quick clip right here, and that way you have a better idea of what I'm talking about. All right, guys, like I said, with light product, take the product and slide it right out. And it's as simple as that. Use the slip sheet to your benefit when you possibly can. Just something people don't think about. Now, I had my forks up a little bit. You want to have your forks a little higher than the pallet so that slip sheet comes off really nice and quick. Without tying anything up. You don't want to be going up, you want to come down at it. So that is just another little tip for doing the reach truck operator. All right, guys, so the third thing I want to talk about is lining up with your product whenever you're going to turn into the slot. I see people really miss this a lot. They don't line up properly, and then when they go to turn in, they're just way off. So basically in this picture right here, what you want to do is you want to try the outriggers is what I just showed you. Like I grabbed that empty pallet in between the outriggers. That's your arms coming out. That's what they're called. They're called outriggers. And you want to get the end of that outrigger within the middle of that pallet. It doesn't have to be directly in the middle. You're not going to sit there and line it up every single time. You want to try to be within my two white lines right there. When you don't have a pallet there, I look at the back. All right, is there a pallet behind the location I'm going to? And I will try to line it up to that, like in this picture right here. So now I'm going to show you some video of me actually doing this. Okay, so, and then whenever you line your outriggers up, you want to make a 90-degree turn. You want to spin that wheel so you're making a total of 90 degrees, so you swing right into there, and we're going to show some video of that right now. All right, guys, so first I'm going to demonstrate without a pallet. Okay, as you can see right here, I was close, 90-degree turn, very easily to maneuver in the opposite direction. I'm within those white lines, a little bit off right there. I had to come over and, like I said, but it just shows you that you don't have to be perfect. Now I'm doing it with product. So you can see in the empty bay right there, I'm looking at the pallet behind the slot. I'm gonna do the same thing. And as you can see, every time it works. It gets me as close as I need to be to get into that slot with no problem without really adjusting myself. So remember that whenever you're lining up to go into your slot. And you could also use that same technique whenever you're pulling stuff out of the reserve above it. All right, so the same thing, just line up and then you can cut that wheel. Now, how much room should you give yourself from the rack while you're doing this? So whenever you spin out, your forks aren't hitting pallets and stuff. I say give yourself the same amount of room you do when you're selecting. When you're selecting with a jack and you give yourself what, about 1.5 feet of room to give yourself room to select on the side of that pallet and give people the room to go, to maneuver by you if possible. Same on this while you're spinning. You want to give yourself about 1.5 feet away from the rack, so whenever you spin out, you do not clip the pallets with the forks. Now, one thing to remember is like some high lifts, these reach lifts have longer forks than others. Now, our perishable building have shorter forks. Our dry goods have longer forks. So you just got to be mindful of your forklift. Is it, long forks, short forks? When you switch back and forth like that, you just got to always be thinking of stuff like that. So that's my third thing today is lining up. I had someone mention that in Discord that they, that's something that should be talked about. Get that outrigger as close to the middle of that pallet as possible and then spinning from there. Guys, that's it for today. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope everyone subscribes to my channel. Guys, leave comments, thumbs up, all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Discord link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.